Matt, I know you were asked ad nauseum about the Carson Hansen play to Burkle, but what I know you worked that play all week and you probably worked it before that, but how did it come about exactly? I mean, what was the conversations like through the headsets and all that?
Yeah.
And,
I first of all, I think so much credit to, Mouse and our offensive staff. I think they have every week tried to put us, in some complementary phases of the game to where we can make really great in-game adjustments. And, if we see this, then we do that. And, that was something that we've had in probably the last 2-3 weeks as we've been running a very similar, run play. And, I think it really started kind of almost as we got into the fourth quarter of like, hey, as we get down here, is this available to us? And we had run that run play on third down, third and short, almost maybe 3 times, I think, prior to us executing that play. And, we called it, and then there was actually a timeout right before that happened. And so, as we took the timeout, just like, are we going to do this? Yes, we're going to do this. And I think our thought process was, obviously, you're going to have fourth down if it doesn't get executed the way it needs to get executed. But I think our faith in our kids, to be honest with you, how we practiced, it really allows you to be bold in the moment and call some of these things. And, Carson did execute that in practice for the last. Now, Jalen Knoll would tell you, man, I was a little nervous about his throwing ability. But I think the reality was just the confidence that our kids give us to keep playing and being able to execute in the moment. And, obviously Mouse does a great job. I think his timing of calling plays and, that was a great call. To be honest with you, the next call was a great call because you went right back and ran the run play again for the touchdown. And I think that's where, you're really proud of like the communication execution. And I think that's one thing we've been able to do a really good job of this year is, making in-game adjustments, having the ability to put our kids in the best position, even though, that play was in the game plan. There's been some other plays that maybe haven't been in the game plan. And, I think that's where continuity, Coach Waters, Mouse, Coach Polly, man, our crew being together, I think it's really helped us be able to kind of execute and communicate as the game goes on.
I asked Jaden about his bond with Jalen, and given how Jalen's on the cusp of 1,000 yards, Jaden, of course, surpassed it last week. How would you describe how you've seen their bond develop and strengthen over the course of a couple of years?
Well, I think it's really fun just because, I said this a little bit about this team. This one thing this group is about is the team. And I think sometimes when you are, especially a skilled football player, whether it's quarterback, running back, wide receiver, you always want the ball. And I've never seen 2 more unselfish wide receivers who today, literally Tuesday's practice, they're in team tackle. It's week 14. These are 2 drafted football players and, all-American type football players, and they're tackling the donut out at practice, and I think it just tells you, man, what those guys have stood for. They've never been above the team. Man, I don't think they've ever cared who gets the credit, who gets the ball. And I think it's what it's allowed them to be so special, to be honest. And I think how they practice, how they go about their business, I think they've elevated each other really since the day that Jaden got here. I really feel Jalen has been an unbelievable teammate, and I think those 2 have really bonded, and I think their work ethic, their bond has permeated through the football program of, man, if these guys aren't selfish, if these guys aren't complaining who gets the football, man, if these guys are blocking, then maybe I should be doing the same thing. And I think that's really helped. Again, when your best players stand for what's right, then you really got a chance to build a great program.
Matt Hufford had said that the loss to Kansas kind of lit a fire under the team. What have you seen from them in that regard over these past couple of weeks?
Yeah, I just think, I don't know a fire. I just think, man, it's adversity. And I think any time that you go through adversity, and I think we say this all the time in our program, it's either adversity is either coming, you're in it, or you're just getting out of it. It's like one of those 3 things, and that's life in general anyways. And, the only way to get through adversity is you got to stand, and then you got to sprint through it. And I think one of the things that's been so remarkable about our leadership is, they were obviously, nobody likes losing a game when you work as hard as you do. And nobody has pointed the finger, nobody's complained. We went back to work. And I think going back to work is the way through tough and trying times. And I think our seniors have led the way, and they've given this group a chance to rebound and really start to play its best football again in November when we have to be our best. And it's been really rewarding to watch their leadership, to be honest.
Matt, have you at any point looked at all the tiebreaker scenarios the Big 12 sent out?
No.
And is this just something that we have to get used to now with these super conferences?
Yeah, I would. That's probably a question for a wise football coach. I don't have as much wisdom on that one. And I know, to be honest, I don't look at any of that stuff. I said this after the game. I appreciate finding out a little bit what was going on, but all my belief is if our football team takes care of us, then we will put ourselves in the best position to be successful, and we'll tell our story at the end of the football season. And to me, all that other stuff is wasted time, effort, and energy. And I said that at the end of September, at mid-October, and I would tell you the same thing right now. We're going to have to play our best football no matter what any of that stuff looks like. We got a great team coming in here that we're going to have to play our best football game. Week 14, we're going to have to play our best to go win a football game, a rival football game. We know that, we understand that, and if we worry about any of that other stuff we can't control, then it's a waste of everybody's time.
With the way this senior class has come together, with some guys being here for 4 or 5 years, others kind of transferring in a couple years ago, what's allowed it to become so strong and such a rock of this? Yeah,
I think when you look at all those guys, number one, there are some really good players in that group, which I think is you have to have, to be a great leader. I still believe in college football, you have to be a pretty good football player. And that group has some really good football players. Then I think it goes down to what makes those football players up, and to me, if you're going to have a great team, you almost have to have leadership for the ages, right? And you have to have characteristics of, you have to be bold in the moment. Football's leading today is not, you got to be bold on the standards. You got to have great characteristics on what you're going to stand for and what you're going to ask others to stand for. Because if you're going to stand, then you got to be able to hold others to that same accountability standard. I think too, you got to have broad shoulders. There's times you're going to have to put the team on your shoulders. There's times that you're going to have to show up and you're going to be the hardest worker and you're going to have to be the guy in the moment that stands up and leads. I think, you look at every game we played, boy, you'd say none of those guys have ever flinched. They've been the guys to make the play, or they've led from the front. And then I think the last characteristic is you got to have a big heart. You gotta, you can't be willing to leave anybody behind. This is still team, and ultimately, if you're gonna win in our sport, you gotta have a great team. And one of the great characteristics of this senior class, is just the heart that they have brought so many people up with them. And I think if you asked our juniors and our sophomores and our freshmen, we have a great coaching staff, and I'm beyond grateful for them. But these seniors, the impact on the lives and the impact that they've made on so many young guys in our football program. What Darian Porter's done in the corners room, what Jared Hufford, has done with that offensive line room. You can kind of go, Jalen Jackson's been here for 9 months. I think he's had a profound impact on the running back room and how he's led and how he's carried himself. Osley Thorson is, plays on special teams. Tragic injury a year ago at Oklahoma and back this year in his rehab, and what he meant to so many guys going through rehab. The list can go on and on, to be quite honest with you. We just talked about the receivers and what they've meant, and you go through every one of those young receivers. What those guys have done to, could you imagine being a young receiver here at Iowa State right now and having those two guys as for the last year and a half I got to watch, how do you practice, how do you take care of your nutrition, how do you go to sleep at night, how do you show up every day? That's what a program is, and that's why our world is a little skewed in college football, because sometimes I think we can just buy a team, but I don't think that's real in football. I think you have to grow a team, and we're really blessed that we've got great senior leadership because they've led with those values every step of the way since January.
Hey, Coach. Oh, sorry. How do you address Avery Johnson's run game in practice?
Yeah, geez, I don't know if you can exactly address it, just because he's such a talented runner and really a talented football player in general. And so, I think a little bit is you got to use your wisdom from, we've played some really talented quarterbacks that can run. where were we good, where were we not good, how do you continue to evolve, and then, try to use some different things in practice just to replicate those things. But obviously his speed, his athleticism, his talent, those are hard, and we're going to have to use our 12, 13 opportunities that we've had so far, and we're going to have to use that to kind of navigate ourselves through the early part of the football game. But obviously presents a great challenge. We have a lot of respect for him.
I'm going to ask you to waste some more time, energy, and effort here. With Chris Kleiman yesterday spoke about the Big 12 maybe needing to reevaluate a lot of different things for better college football playoff access to get multiple teams or to have a better seed. Do you have any thoughts on what the league, if the league needs to look at anything, and what that might be?
Boy, to be honest with you, that's probably a great question for like January or February. I don't know. Honestly, it's too hard to worry about tomorrow, to be honest, just with our own football team and just our journey. And Chris has been through a lot, right? He's been through the playoff system. He's been in North Dakota State. Obviously, he's been here, so he's probably got some wisdom and thoughts about that better than what I would have. I think from my end of it, it's been really hard to navigate anything off what's going on here and now.
Singleton, Brzezina, Bramer, and it looked like Surgis must be right on the cusp of being able to play.
Yeah, so Drew, yes. Singleton practiced today, so I think really big. Bramer at practice today. I think he's probably close. We'll kind of see where he is by Saturday at game time, and then Kale, probably not. I think Kale will, we're probably a week away from seeing Kale again. So, that's just kind of where we are today.
Matt, for you as a coach that's been around the block, what is senior night like? Does it get easier over time, or do you still get emotional?
No, I think you get emotional because you're 9 years in a program, and when you see these young men that have come through your program that were young men coming in here and now they're men, and you see what they've meant. I mean, this senior class especially, and they're all special, but this senior class that you would say in a lot of ways saved our program. Where we were 2 years ago to where we are today, had it not been for the leadership of this group, and a lot of other guys along the way, last year's senior class, and I think some of the young guys have been having to play over the last 24 football games, but boy, the leadership of this senior class, it's emotional because you're just so grateful. You're grateful they stayed, you're grateful they believed in you, and then you're grateful for the men that they've become, because you know that the world, no matter where they're going, man, are going to inherit some really special humans, whether it's great fathers and husbands here in 2 or 3 years, whether it's unbelievable leaders of a football team, or some company is going to get a transformational human that's going to come in and then knows how to lead from the front. And again, I in a society today, to have leadership, boy, it's powerful. And every one of these young men that you're going to see walk across the field on Saturday, they've reached their full potential. They've become the absolute best version of themselves, and it's why our football team is playing the way it is, because of who they are and the resiliency that they certainly have had.
You talked a lot there about your senior class and the adversity that this group has faced. Does that make Saturday's celebration of them maybe mean a little bit more to you because you've had to go through so many trials and tribulations and fight so much adversity with them and experience success and experience failure? Does that make it a little bit different for you?
Yeah, well, I think being here at Iowa State, most senior classes have had some of those events, right? I think it's like asking who's your favorite child. I mean, the reality of it is every year has a little bit different story, and every year has a little bit different, maybe journey. But I would just say, like, I'm so grateful. I think it's really hard to be a senior in college football today, and it's really hard to be a senior that stayed the course in your program for 4 or 5, in some cases this year, 6 years. And, to have those guys in your program and have those guys that have stayed and been loyal, hard qualities to find in college football. And so, I feel for me, that's one of the senses of, man, being at a place now, our 9th football season, to have so many classes that have come through and had the value of those characteristics. And I feel like every group has some way, shape, or form left it better than they found it. And this group is certainly no different. So, it'll be special, be emotional. The reality of it is it's also a big football game in terms of, man, you're playing a really talented football team. And so, all those emotions, this is a tricky week. And, I think the as our football team has been able to do. You talk through it early in the week, you talk through how you're going to handle it, and then you get ready to go play your best football, because the greatest tribute we can give this team, right, the greatest tribute we can give this senior class is to play our best 60 minutes of football of the year. And I think myself, our coaching staff, and I know our underclassmen are on a mission to be able to do that for the betterment of this senior class, and then, see what that allows you to be able to do and accomplish in a 60-minute football game.
You've talked so much about the leadership of the senior class throughout the trials that you guys have had to face over the last 4, 5, some cases 6 years with them. Is there a moment that sticks out to you of, man, this group has special leadership capabilities, because you reference it so often? Is there a moment where it's like, oh, that kind of is when it all goes back to?
Well, I think, if you just look at the last, 12, 13, 14 months, I mean, we've been through a lot. There's been a lot of things that have occurred here. And, from what happened last summer to obviously, being dealt some tough blows there, and obviously the early part of last football season. And, I would say the young men that are going to walk across that field, I mean, they've been pillars of, hey, we're not going to let this thing go. Actually, we have to stand up and lead through it. And obviously, we've been fortunate to have awesome coaches that have been able to do the same thing and been arm in arm with our football players doing that. And that's what's really made our place really special, is to have great people that have been willing to come together as one, not make it about any individual, but make it about us. And they've certainly bought into that and led that way, and I'm really grateful for that.
Thank you, Coach.
All right, guys, thank you.